The space station hung in the darkness like a silver wheel spinning slowly against the stars. Station Perseus 7 was the biggest military school in the galaxy. Ships came and went like fireflies, bringing young soldiers from hundreds of different worlds. Today, one of those ships carried Yuna. She pressed her face against the small window of the transport shuttle. Earth was far behind her now, just a memory of blue oceans and green lands. Yuna was 22 years old and scared, though she would never say it out loud. She was one of only 5 humans accepted into the academy this year. 5 out of thousands who applied. 5 out of millions of creatures from across the stars. The shuttle docked with a soft thump. Yuna grabbed her bag and joined the line of new cadets walking toward the entrance. She felt small among them. There were tall creatures with scales that shimmered like bronze metal. There were beings made of crystal that caught the light and threw rainbows across the walls. Some had 4 arms, some had 6 legs, some floated without touching the ground at all. Nobody talked to her. Nobody even looked at her. The line moved forward slowly. Yuna could see the security gate ahead, a massive arch that glowed with blue light. Each cadet stepped through and the scanner would beep once, showing their name and homeworld in green letters. Simple. Easy. Then it was Yuna's turn. She stepped through the arch. Immediately, alarms screamed. Red light flooded the terminal, so bright it hurt her eyes. The holographic display exploded with text that everyone could see. Big letters. Angry letters, warning, Earthborn detected, threat level extreme, protocol do not engage. The entire terminal went silent. Hundreds of cadets stopped moving. They all turned to stare at her, then someone laughed. It started as a hiss, coming from a Draxian cadet with bronze scales and yellow eyes. His name was Minho, and he stood with a group of older students who wore the dark uniforms of second-year cadets. "Look," Minho said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The Death Worlder thinks she belongs here." His friends laughed too. A crystalline being named Hannah stepped forward. Her body was like living glass, beautiful and cold. "I heard humans cry when they hurt their toes," she said, her voice like wind chimes. "How did something so weak survive their own planet?" More laughter. Yuna felt her face grow hot, but she did not move. She kept her eyes forward. The security officer rushed over. He was called Jiwan, a Vrin with 6 arms and compound eyes that looked like black jewels. His hands moved quickly over the control panel, typing commands to shut off the alarm. "Old systems," Jiwan muttered. "From the war. Just ignore it. Move along." But Yuna noticed something strange. The officer's hands shook slightly. His eyes would not look at her face. And when she walked past him, she heard him whisper something too quiet for the others to hear. "Stay safe, human." The red lights faded. The alarm stopped. The crowd began to move again, though they gave Yuna space now, walking around her like she was something dangerous. She picked up her bag and followed the signs toward the dormitory area. The hallways were clean and white, with windows showing the stars outside. Other cadets rushed past her, excited and talking in languages she could not understand. Yuna walked alone. She passed a memorial wall. It was a big screen showing names and faces of soldiers who had died in different wars. Yuna almost walked past it, but something caught her eye. At the bottom of the list, in smaller text, she saw the words, "The Human Incursion 2830. She stopped. Touched the screen. The list expanded. Coalition casualties scrolled down. 3 full screens of names. Thousands of soldiers dead. Then she found the human casualties. 0.y Yuna stared at that number for a long time. 0. No humans had died. But thousands of coalition soldiers had. In a war she had never heard of. A war that happened only 17 years ago. "Keep moving, cadet." Yuna jumped. An instructor walked past her, not stopping to see what she was looking at. She pulled her hand away from the screen and kept walking. Her room was small but clean. 1 bed, 1 desk, 1 window showing the curve of the station against space. Her roommate had not arrived yet. Yuna sat on the bed and felt the weight of the day settle on her shoulders. Her communication device beeped. "A message from Earth Command. the military officers who had sent her here. Remember your mission. Watch, listen, learn why they fear us. Do not reveal your full capabilities. Blend in. Yuna deleted the message and lay back on the bed. Through the window she could see Earth's sun, tiny and far away. She thought about home. She thought about her family. She thought about the memorial wall and the number 0. Somewhere in this station, there were answers. There was a reason the scanner called her a threat. There was a reason the security officer's hands shook. There was a reason thousands of coalition soldiers had died while fighting 40 humans. Yuna closed her eyes. Tomorrow, training would begin. Tomorrow, she would start looking for those answers. But tonight, she was just a young woman far from home, surrounded by beings who feared her without knowing why, outside her window. The stars turned slowly in the endless dark. Keeping secrets that were 17 years old, the morning alarm sounded like a dying animal. Yuna rolled out of bed and put on her training uniform. It was gray and tight, made from material that could handle extreme temperatures. Her roommates still had not arrived. The room felt empty and cold. She followed the other cadets to the mess hall. The food was strange, designed to feed hundreds of different species. Some ate crystals that glowed. Some drank thick liquid that smelled like metal. Yuna found the human section and took a meal bar that tasted like cardboard, but had all the nutrients she needed. Nobody sat near her. After breakfast, all first-year cadets gathered in the main training hall. It was huge, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. An instructor stood on a platform at the front. She was made of crystal, her body catching the light and throwing colors across the walls. Her name was Commander Hyjin. "Welcome to your first day," Commander Hyjin said. Her voice was clear and cold. "You are here because your worlds think you are special. They are wrong. Here you are nothing. You will train. You will suffer. Most of you will fail." She looked directly at Yuna when she said the next part. "Humans may have impressed the Council with tricks during first contact, but this academy requires actual skill. Not luck, not deception, skill." Yuna felt her face burn, but she kept quiet. The cadets were divided into training units. Yuna was assigned to Unit 47. Her squad had 5 members. There was Taiyang, a massive Korthan with 4 arms and skin like thick armor. There was Somin, an Aetheri who looked like she was made of light and energy. There was Junho, a Draxian with green scales and sharp teeth. And there was Yuna. None of them looked happy to have her. The first exercise was gravity training. They entered a room where the gravity could be changed. Commander Hyjin set it to 3 times normal Earth gravity. Yuna felt the weight immediately, like someone had put rocks on her shoulders. But she could handle it. Earth's gravity was already higher than most other worlds. The other cadets struggled more. Somin, being made of energy, did not feel gravity the same way. Taiyang was strong and managed well. Junho moved slowly, his face showing pain. "Run," Commander Hyjin ordered. 10 kilometers. You have 1 hour. They ran. Or tried to. Yuna wanted to go faster. Her body was built for this, but she remembered her orders. Blend in. Do not show your full strength. So she ran at the same pace as Junho, pretending to struggle. After 3 kilometers, Somin collapsed. The gravity was too much for her energy form. Medical staff came and took her away. After 5 kilometers, Junho's breathing hard, his scales dark with effort. After 7 kilometers, even Taiyang was moving slower. Yuna kept running. She controlled her breathing, kept her pace steady. Inside she felt fine. She could run for hours at this gravity. Days, maybe? But she did not let it show. They finished at 59 minutes. Junho collapsed immediately. Taiyang sat down heavily, all 4 arms shaking. Yuna stood, breathing hard but not collapsed. Commander Hyjin looked at her with strange eyes. "Adequate," the commander said. The next 3 days followed the same pattern. Brutal exercises designed to break them. Combat simulations where holographic enemies attacked from all sides. Endurance tests that went on for hours. Each time, Yuna held back. Each time she made herself look average, but her squad noticed. "You are not even trying," Taiyang said one evening. They were in the barracks, cleaning their equipment. I see it. You hold back. I do not know what you mean, Yuna said, liar. Jinhunho threw his cleaning cloth down. You think we are stupid? You run 10 kilometers in high gravity like it is nothing. You complete the combat course without sweating. What are you? Yuna did not answer. She put her equipment away and went to her room. On the 4th day, everything changed. It was free training time. Cadets could use the gym to practice fighting skills. Yuna was working on a practice dummy in the corner, trying to stay unnoticed. Then Minho walked in, the Draxian, who had laughed at her on the first day, brought his friends with him. They surrounded Yuna, blocking her exit. The Death Worlder, Minho said. Let us see what you can really do. I do not want trouble, Yuna said. Too bad. Minho activated a training ring. Lights appeared on the floor, marking the fighting area. Alarms sounded, announcing a challenge. Cadets from all over the gym stopped what they were doing and came to watch. Even some instructors appeared on the observation deck above. Minho stepped into the ring. He was huge, twice Yuna's size, covered in bronze scales that looked like armor. He had fought in real wars. Everyone knew his story. Yuna had no choice. She stepped into the ring. Do not worry, human, Minho hissed. I will be gentle. I would not want to break our fragile guest. His friends laughed. The crowd laughed. Even Hannah was there, recording everything on her device. The fight started. Minho charged forward like a bull, all his weight and power behind the attack. He was fast for his size, trained and dangerous. Yuna was faster. She moved to the side so quickly she seemed to disappear. Minho's attack hit nothing but air. Before he could recover, Yuna struck. It was a simple move, a palm thrust to his chest. Not a punch, just a push. Minho flew backward like he had been hit by a vehicle. He crashed into the wall 10 meters away. The impact cracked his armor scales. He slid to the floor and did not get up. The gym went completely silent. Yuna stood in the center of the ring, not even breathing hard. She had used maybe 10% of her strength. Maybe less. Medical staff rushed in to help Minho. The crowd backed away from Yuna, fear in their eyes. Cadet Yuna, a voice said over the speaker system. Report to Commander Haijin's office immediately. Yuna walked through the crowd. They parted for her like water, nobody wanting to get close. She could hear the whispers starting already. Commander Haijin's office was high in the station, with windows showing the stars. The commander sat behind her desk, her crystal body shifting colors that Yuna had learned meant deep thought. Sit, Haijin said. Yuna sat. For a long moment the commander just looked at her. Then she activated a screen showing Yuna's file. Your homeworld's gravity is 1.0, Haijin said slowly. That is considered very high for life to develop intelligence. Most species evolve on worlds with 0.7 or 0.8 gravity. Your atmospheric oxygen content is 21%. That is toxic to most species in those concentrations. Your world's predator-to-prey ratio is the highest we have ever recorded. Earth's ecosystem should have collapsed thousands of years ago from overpredation. She paused, her colors shifting to something Yuna could not read. How much were you holding back in training? Haijin asked. Yuna said nothing. That is what I thought. The commander stood and walked to the window. You are dismissed. But Yuna, be careful. The warning system at the gate did not malfunction. Remember that. That night Yuna could not sleep. She kept thinking about Commander Haijin's words. She opened her communication device and accessed the Academy's database using the secret codes Earth Command had given her. She searched for human incursion, 2830. Most of the file was blocked, covered with red warning signs, but she found one report that was still readable. It was from a coalition patrol ship that had made first contact with a human exploration vessel. The report described taking biological samples for cultural exchange. A human commander had offered her own blood for testing. The medical analysis made Yuna's hands shake as she read it. Human regenerative factors were 40 times the baseline. Human bone density was comparable to Korthan warrior class. the strongest species in the galaxy. Human neurological processing speed was beyond even the Vrin, who were known for quick thinking. Human pain tolerance was so high the report could not finish measuring it. The data was marked as an error. The final line of the report made everything clear. Recommended action: quarantine species. Avoid conflict at all costs. Yuna closed the file and stared at her hands. These hands that looked so normal. These hands that had just sent a trained warrior flying across a room without even trying. She thought about the memorial wall. 0 human casualties. Thousands of coalition casualties. What had humans done 17 years ago that made the entire galaxy afraid? Outside her window, the stars turned slowly in space, keeping their secrets. But Yuna knew one thing now: she was going to find the truth. The announcement came during breakfast on the first day of the second month. Every cadet in the mess hall stopped eating when Commander Hyjin's voice came through the speakers. All first-year cadets will participate in the Crucible starting tomorrow. This is a week-long combat simulation. You will face real combat scenarios with real consequences. The simulation cannot kill you, but it can hurt you. Survival rate for first-year cadets is 23%. Good luck. The mess hall exploded with nervous chatter. Yuna saw fear on faces from dozens of different species. The Crucible was famous. It was the test that separated soldiers from pretenders. That evening, Unit 47 gathered to prepare. Somin had returned from medical after the gravity incident. She looked at Yuna differently now, with caution instead of contempt. The mission briefing says we have to rescue a diplomat from a hostile city, Junho said, reading from his datapad. The enemy is Ravagers. They are known for brutal combat and no mercy. Wonderful, Somin muttered, her energy form flickering with anxiety. Taiyang looked at Yuna. Will you hold back this time? Or will you actually help us? Yuna met his eyes. I will do what is needed to complete the mission. That is not an answer, Junho said. It is the only answer I have, Yuna replied. The next morning they entered the simulation pods. Yuna lay down in the gel that would connect her nervous system to the virtual environment. The world went dark, then bright, then she was standing in a ruined city. The buildings were broken and burned. Smoke filled the air. In the distance, she could hear weapons firing and creatures screaming. This was a war zone. Unit 47, move to Extraction Point Alpha, a voice said in her ear. Recover the diplomat. Time limit, 6 hours. Formation up, Junho ordered. He was the tactical leader. Taiyang on point, Somin on sensors, Yuna on rear guard. They moved through the ruins carefully. Everything felt real. The ground under Yuna's feet, the smoke in her lungs, the weight of the training weapon in her hands. The simulation was perfect, too perfect. The ambush came from 3 directions at once. Plasma bolts screamed through the air. Somin took a direct hit, and her energy form exploded into nothing. She was dead, ejected from the simulation. Contact! Tiang shouted, returning fire with all 4 arms. But there were too many enemies? A railgun shot hit 2 of his arms, disabling them. He roared in pain. Fall back! Junho ordered, but when they turned, that route was blocked too. More enemies appeared, surrounding them. They were trapped. Junho froze. His training had prepared him for organized combat, not this chaos. His hands shook on his weapon. Junho, Yuna said calmly. Give me tactical lead. What? No, I am in command. Now, Yuna interrupted. Her voice was not loud. It did not need to be loud. It carried something else, something deep and old and very dangerous. The sound an apex predator makes right before it attacks. Every survival instinct in Junho's brain screamed at him. His scales went pale. Without thinking, he stepped back. You have command, he whispered. Yuna's eyes changed. Later, Taiyang would try to describe it to others. He would say it was like watching a switch flip. One moment, Yuna was a cadet. The next moment, she was something else entirely. Taiyang, suppressing fire on the North Group. 3 round bursts, aim for the weapons, not the bodies. Junho, stay low and mark targets for me. Move. They moved. Yuna did not run through the environment. She flowed through it like water finding cracks in stone. She read the terrain the way her ancestors had read African plains, hunting prey across thousands of kilometers. She listened to the sounds of the enemy, learning their patterns, their positions, their fears. Humans evolved as pursuit predators, she said, almost to herself as she moved around a collapsed building. We tracked wounded animals across continents for days. We hunted creatures 10 times our size until they collapsed from exhaustion. This city is just another hunting ground. She used the building's acoustics to locate enemies before they appeared. She coordinated attacks on 3 positions at once using only hand signals. The other species could not read human facial expressions well. They could not tell when she was bluffing, when she was afraid. When she was pretending, she used that. She left disabled enemies in visible positions, making the Ravagers think there were more fighters than there actually were. She created sounds in empty buildings, forcing the enemy to spread their forces thin, searching for ghosts. "This is psychological warfare," Junho whispered, watching in awe. "She is making them afraid." They fought through the city for 3 hours. Every engagement should have killed them. But Yuna seemed to know where the enemies would be before they arrived. She predicted their movements, read their tactics, turn their own fear against them. Finally, they reached the diplomat's location. 12 other squads had tried and failed. Their virtual bodies lay in the streets, casualties marked by red lights. The diplomat was held in a building surrounded by enemy positions. Kill zones covered every approach. Overlapping fields of fire. "No way in. This is impossible," Taiyang said quietly, all 4 arms tense with frustration. "For you, maybe," Yuna replied. Then she stepped out into the open. "No." Junho screamed, but it was too late. Rail gunfire poured down from 6 positions. Yuna moved. Not fast enough to dodge the bullets themselves. Nobody was that fast. But she was faster than the fingers pulling the triggers. She read the shooters, predicted when they would fire, moved before the shot came. She used rubble for cover, timing her movements perfectly. A bolt grazed her shoulder, another hit her leg. The simulation made her feel the pain, bright and sharp. She ignored it. She reached the building, crashed through a window, fought through 3 Ravager guards with moves that were efficient and brutal. She found the diplomat, threw him over her shoulder, and walked back out into the hell she had just survived. The enemy fire was heavier now. She took 3 hits that would kill any other cadet. The simulation registered them as fatal wounds. But Yuna had already thrown the diplomat to Junho. Before she collapsed. Mission complete. They extracted with only 1 casualty besides Yuna, Soman, killed in the first ambush. The Academy's best squad on record had lost 6 members on this same scenario. In the observation room, Commander Haijin and the other instructors watched the replay in silence. The Academy's headmaster Daeyun was an ancient Vrin who had fought in wars older than most species. His mandibles clicked slowly as he watched Yuna's performance. "She is operating at 60% capacity," he said quietly. "Maybe less. How is this possible?" another instructor asked. Daeyun turned his compound eyes to the screen, watching Yuna move through the battlefield like a force of nature. "Because we have been training soldiers," he said. "Earth trained survivors first and then made them into soldiers. There is a difference." Word spread through the Academy faster than light. By evening, everyone knew what Unit 47 had accomplished. More importantly, everyone knew how. Cadets started avoiding Yuna in the hallways. They would cross to the other side of the corridor when they saw her coming. The fear was thick enough to taste. That night, Yuna received an encrypted message from Earth Command. "Dig deeper. Find out what happened in 2830. The Coalition is not afraid of what we are. They are afraid of what we did." In the medical bay, Minho lay recovering from his gym injuries. He watched footage of Yuna's simulation performance on repeat. His hands shook. His friends had stopped visiting, too disturbed by what they had seen. What kind of world makes something like that? He whispered to the empty room. On Earth, where life had clawed and fought and refused to die for 4 billion years, the answer was simple: a world that never stopped trying to kill you. A world where only the stubborn survived. A world where giving up meant extinction. Earth had made Yuna, and Earth had made billions. More just like her. The galaxy was only beginning to understand what that meant. Yuna sat in her room, staring at the message from Earth Command. Outside, the station turned through space. Inside, she felt the weight of questions that needed answers. Tomorrow, she would find Jiwan, the security officer who had been at the gate. The one whose hands had shaken when he saw her. The one who had whispered, "Stay safe, human." He knew something. He had been there 17 years ago. When humans and the Coalition first met, he had been there when everything changed, and Yuna was going to make him tell her the truth. Finding Jiwan was not hard. He worked the same security gate every day, checking cadets and visitors with his 6 arms moving quickly over the control panels. What was hard was getting him to talk. "I cannot help you," Jiwan said when Yuna approached him after his shift. His compound eyes looked everywhere except at her. "I do not know what you are asking about." "The human incursion of 2830, Yuna said quietly. "You were there. I saw it in your file." Jiwan's mandibles clicked nervously. He looked around the corridor, making sure they were alone. "Even if I was, it is classified. I could lose everything for talking about it. People are afraid of me, and I do not know why," Yuna said. "I need to understand, please." Something in her voice made Jiwan stop walking. He looked at her for a long moment, his alien face impossible to read. Then he made a decision. "The archives," he said. "Sublevel 12, Section 7. Tonight, after the third watch change. Come alone." He walked away before Yuna could respond. That night, Yuna made her way through the empty corridors of the station. The archives were old, a part of the station that had been built centuries ago. The walls were darker here, the lights dimmer. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. Jiwan was waiting in a small room surrounded by data storage units. He had already pulled up several files on the holographic displays. "I was there," he said without greeting. "I was on the Coalition response fleet. I was young then, barely trained. They told us it would be simple. First contact with a new species. Standard integration protocols." He activated one of the displays. It showed a ship, human-made, moving through space. The words "New Horizon" were written on its side. "A colony ship?" Jiwan continued. 10,000 civilians, families, children. They had crossed into Coalition space by accident. Their navigation systems were old, not designed for intergalactic travel. They did not even know we existed. "What happened?" Yuna asked. "We surrounded them." Sent the standard message. "Submit to Coalition authority, prepare for inspection, surrender your weapons." Jiwan's mandibles trembled. Their captain refused. He pulled up another file. A woman's face appeared. She was middle-aged, with dark hair and eyes that looked tired but determined. Her name was Captain Sora. She said she had 10,000 people under her protection. She said she would not surrender her ship to unknowns. She asked for diplomatic talks instead. Jiwan paused. The fleet commander saw this as an insult. He ordered warning shots. And then she counterattacked. Jiwan pulled up battle reports. Yuna read them with growing disbelief. The colony ship had no real weapons. Just mining equipment and a security force of 40 soldiers. 40 against a Coalition fleet of 3 cruisers carrying 2,000 troops. It should have been over in minutes. "They boarded her ship," Jiwan said, his voice quiet. "Elite shock troops. The best the Coalition had. Veterans of a dozen wars. They expected to take the bridge in under an hour. What happened?" "The humans stopped them." The reports showed impossible things. Human security personnel using mining lasers and improvised explosives to repel trained soldiers. Using the ship's corridors and systems against the borders. Fighting with a coordination that seemed telepathic. "We kept sending more troops," Jiwan said. "We could not understand why they were not winning. These were Coalition shock troops against civilian security guards. But the humans would not stop. They would not retreat. One of our soldiers shot a human 3 times and the human kept fighting. kept fighting until he completed his objective, then collapsed. He pulled up medical reports. Yuna felt sick reading them. Captain Sora held the bridge for 6 hours personally, Jawan continued. She fought hand-to-hand when her weapon ran out. She killed 8 coalition soldiers before we finally retreated. You retreated? Yuna asked in shock. We had to. Yuan's whole body shook now. We sent 2,000 soldiers. By the end, 1,600 were casualties. The humans lost 23. 23 out of 40. He pulled up another file. This one was marked with the highest level of classification. Video footage from a coalition soldier's helmet camera. Yuna watched it in silence. The video showed a human soldier, a young man barely out of his teens, defending a corridor. He had been shot twice already. His leg was broken, but he held his position. Using an improvised shield and a mining tool converted into a weapon, 3 coalition soldiers attacked him. He fought all 3. Even injured, even dying, he fought like something wild and desperate. When his weapon broke, he used his hands. When he could not stand, he crawled, and he won. The 3 coalition soldiers retreated, fear clear in their movements. The human stayed at his post until reinforcements arrived, then finally allowed himself to collapse. We had never seen anything like it, Jawan whispered. Species that evolved on harsh worlds were rare. Species that evolved as pack-hunting persistence predators were supposed to be impossible. But humans were both. What happened after? Yuna asked, her voice rough. The fleet commander ordered a full retreat. The coalition immediately classified everything. Then they sent diplomats instead of soldiers. G1 pulled up the treaty documents. They offered humanity a place in the coalition, but on very specific terms. Limited military service, monitored worlds, population tracking. They quarantined us, Yuna realized. They were terrified, Jawan corrected. Do you understand? In 400 years of coalition history, no one had ever made us retreat. No one had ever fought like that. The medical analysis of human biology was classified because it was too disturbing. He pulled up the medical report Yuna had already seen. But this version was complete, not redacted. Human regenerative ability was 40 times baseline. Human bone density was comparable to the strongest species known. Human pain tolerance was beyond measurement. Human endurance exceeded all records. But the most disturbing part was the neurological analysis. Humans could suppress their own survival instincts. They could choose to ignore pain, ignore fear, ignore the body's screaming demands to stop and run. They could choose to keep fighting when every logical being would surrender. That is what scared the coalition most, Jiwan said. Not your strength. Not your speed. Your choice. The fact that you can decide to not give up, even when giving up is the only logical option. Yuna thought about the memorial wall. 0 human casualties, it had said. But that was not quite right. 23 humans had died. They had just died completing their missions, protecting their people, refusing to retreat. The academy, Yuna said slowly. They accepted us to study us. Yes, Jawan admitted. Every simulation, every test, every training exercise, they collect data on human combat performance. They want to know your limits. Your weaknesses. For what purpose? In case they ever need to fight you again. The words hung in the air like poison. That evening, Commander Haijin summoned Yuna to her office. The Velthari's crystal body was shifting colors rapidly, a sign of strong emotion. I have been ordered to increase your training difficulty, Haijin said without introduction. Push you to your absolute limits. The senior staff wants to see you break. Will you do it? Yuna asked. There was a long silence. Haijin's colors shifted to something softer, almost sad. I was on the diplomatic team after the battle, she said finally. I met Captain Sora. We talked for hours, trying to understand what had happened. Do you know what she told me? Yuna shook her head. She said, we did not fight because we are warriors. We fought because you threatened our children. Never threaten a human's pack. Haijin's colors shifted to something like respect. I will not try to break you, Cadet Yuna, but others will. Be ready, something else was happening too. Something Yuna had not expected. Tyang approached her during training the next day. The big Korthan warrior stood in front of her, all four arms relaxed. "Teach me," he said simply. "Teach you what?" "How to fight like you. How to think like you." Soon others came. Jinhonho wanted to learn human tactical thinking. Soman wanted to understand how to use psychology in combat. Even cadets from other units started seeking her out. Yuna found herself teaching them. Not how to be human, but how to think differently. How to see the environment as a tool. How to use endurance as a weapon. How to refuse to give up even when logic said you should. Late that night, Yuna accessed one final classified file that Jiwon had unlocked for her. Captain Sora's personal log from the Battle of New Horizon. She read the last entry with tears in her eyes. They do not understand. They think we are dangerous because we are strong or fast or resilient. That is not it. We are dangerous because we are the species that looked at an entire planet trying to kill us. Predators and diseases and ice ages and droughts, and we said no. We are the species that decided extinction was not acceptable. That is what makes us human. That is what they fear. If they ever truly threaten Earth, they will learn what we are really capable of. I pray they never do. An alert flashed on Yuna's screen. Emergency simulation scheduled. All cadets, all units. Highest difficulty setting. The message was clear. They were going to try to break her. Yuna closed the file and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, the world that had made her. The world that had made billions like her. The world that had survived everything the universe threw at it and came out stronger. "Let them try," she whispered to the darkness. Tomorrow would be the real test. Not of her strength or her speed or her skill. Tomorrow would test whether she would break. And Yuna already knew the answer to that question. The emergency announcement came at dawn. Every cadet on the station was ordered to report immediately. No exceptions. No delays. Over 500 cadets from 30 different species gathered in the main simulation hall. The air was thick with confusion and fear. This had never happened before. Emergency simulations were not part of the normal training schedule. Commander Haijin stood on the platform, but she was not alone. The Academy's headmaster, Daeun, stood beside her. So did Admiral Kyun, a famous Korthan military hero, and several other high-ranking officers that Yuna did not recognize. "You will be deployed into the largest combat simulation ever created," Daeun announced. His ancient voice carried through the hall. "The scenario is simple. Defend a coalition colony from a Ravager invasion. You will have no air support. No reinforcements. No evacuation." He paused, letting that sink in. "Expected survival rate, 5%. Historical survival rate for this scenario, 2%. You have 10 minutes to prepare." The hall erupted in panic. Yuna felt calm. She understood now. This was not a training exercise. This was a test. A test specifically designed for her. They wanted to see what happened when a human faced impossible odds. They were going to find out. Unit 47 gathered quickly. Taeyang, Junho, Soman, and Yuna. They had trained together for months now. They had learned to work as a team, though everyone knew Yuna was the real leader. "We cannot win this," Soman said, her energy form flickering with anxiety. "We do not need to win," Yuna replied. "We need to survive. And we need to make them pay for every meter." She smiled then, and her squadmates saw it clearly. Not a friendly smile. The smile of a predator before the hunt. The simulation began. They deployed into a colony city under siege. Buildings burned. Civilians screamed. Enemy forces were everywhere, thousands of Ravagers attacking from all directions. It was chaos. Pure, designed chaos. Within the first hour, 20 squads were eliminated. Cadets panicked, broke formation, died. The command structure fell apart almost immediately. Unit 47 held a critical intersection in the city center. Enemies came at them in waves, endless, relentless. "What do we do?" Junho shouted over the weapons fire. "We cannot hold this position forever. We are not going to hold it, Yuna said calmly. She was already moving, already planning. We are going to make them afraid to take it. She did not fight like the other cadets. She did not try to defend fixed positions or hold territory. Instead, she turned the entire city into a weapon. She had squads create false trails, making the enemy think there were forces where there were none. She used the city's acoustics to amplify sounds, making small groups seem like large armies. She left traps in obvious paths, making the Ravagers second-guess every advance. This is psychological warfare, Junho realized, watching her work. She is not trying to beat them. She is trying to break them. Other squads noticed. When their own leaders failed, when their tactics collapsed, they started following Yuna's example. Not because she ordered them, but because her methods worked. Minho's squad was pinned down in a building surrounded by enemies. Yuna led a rescue force through the sewers, attacking from below where the Ravagers never expected. She saved his entire squad with 0 casualties. When Minho saw her, he dropped to one knee. I was wrong, he said. About everything. Teach us to fight like humans. You do not need to fight like humans, Yuna replied. You need to fight like you refuse to lose. That is all humans do. We just never forget it. The simulation continued. Hour after hour. Most species would have collapsed from exhaustion by now. But Yuna had been right. Humans had evolved to chase prey until the prey died of exhaustion. Running for days without stopping was built into human DNA. She kept going. And going. And going. Around her, cadets from dozens of species started changing. They stopped fighting like they were in a training exercise. They started fighting like they were protecting something worth dying for, Hannah's reconnaissance. Unit adapted their crystal senses to Yuna's tactical needs, providing information faster than any computer. Tang learned to use his strength not for power but for persistence. Holding positions longer than anyone thought possible, across the simulation, a transformation happened. Cadets who had been trained to follow orders started making their own decisions. Squads who had never worked together began coordinating like they had trained for years. They were learning to think like humans. To adapt, to persist, to refuse to accept defeat. In the observation deck, the senior staff watched in stunned silence. The casualty rate is wrong, one instructor said. It should be at 95% by now. It is only at 40%. 35%, another corrected. And dropping. Commander Haijin stared at the screen showing Yuna's position. She is not trying to win the scenario, she said slowly. She is changing how everyone fights. Impossible, an officer muttered. These tactics require constant adaptation, psychological resilience, the refusal to accept defeat even when human traits, Daeyeon interrupted. His mandibles clicked in a pattern that might have been awe. She is spreading them like a virus. She is teaching the entire academy to think like humans. Admiral Kiyun stood suddenly. His forearms were tense. Shut it down, sir? Shut down the simulation. Now, that is an order. The simulation ended at hour 80, 6 hours earlier than scheduled. The cadets emerged from their pods exhausted, confused, but alive. Final survival rate, 67%, the highest in Academy history. For a scenario designed to be unwinnable, Yuna's squad mates collapsed around her. She remained standing, breathing hard but ready. Ready to keep fighting if needed? How are you still standing? Taeyang asked, looking up at her with something like worship. Because the simulation ended, Yuna replied simply. If it had not, I would still be fighting. And that was when they understood. She had not been anywhere near her limit. Admiral Kiyun summoned Yuna to the command level. She entered to find not just the admiral, but the entire senior staff and several higher-ranking coalition officials joining via hologram. Do you know why we stopped the simulation early, Cadet? Admiral Kiyun asked. Because you got your answer, sir. And what answer was that? Yuna met his gaze without fear. You wanted to know if you could beat humans in a fair fight. The answer is no, so you will never give us a fair fight. Silence filled the room. One of the holographic officials spoke. You are saying we fear you. I am saying you should, Yuna replied calmly. Not because we want to fight you, but because if you ever force us to, we will not stop until we have won or we are extinct. That is not a threat. That is just what we are. Headmaster Daeyun stepped forward. I was there at the founding of the coalition 400 years ago. I have seen species rise and fall. I have watched empires burn. His mandibles clicked in what might have been respect. In all that time, I have never seen a species like yours. He activated a hologram showing the full, unredacted report from the Battle of New Horizon. We did not classify this because you won, Daeyun said. We classified it because of how you won. 40 soldiers, improvised weapons, defending civilians. You should have been slaughtered. He paused. Instead, our troops began surrendering. Not because they were beaten, because they were terrified. The hologram showed coalition soldiers describing human fighters who ignored fatal injuries, who coordinated without communication, who fought with a determination that seemed impossible. One soldier said it best. Daeyun played an audio recording. They do not fight like they are trying to win. They fight like they have already decided they will not lose. What do you do against an enemy that refuses to be defeated? Admiral Kiyun spoke again. The coalition has a proposal. We want to establish a joint task force. Coalition resources with human tactical leadership. You would be the first member. Why? Yuna asked. Because in 400 years of peace we have grown soft. The border territories are destabilizing. Enemies are becoming bolder. He looked at the other officers. We need warriors again. We need what humans bring. The will to survive at any cost. Yuna thought about Captain Sora, about the 40 soldiers who held against impossible odds, about Earth's history of refusing to die. I will join, she said, on one condition. This task force is not human-led. It is human-inspired. You do not need us to fight your battles. You need us to teach you how to fight like you are worth saving. Commander. Haijin's crystalline face shifted through. Colors, surprise, understanding, respect. You want to change the entire coalition military. Doctrine, she said. I want to remind you what you already are, Yuna corrected. Every species here survived their own harsh world. You just forgot what that means. We will help you remember. 6 months later, the Coalition Joint Task Force had grown to include 40 cadets from 20 species. Tiang taught Korthan warriors that persistence mattered more than strength. Minho led reconnaissance units that thought like pack hunters. Hana's crystalline people learned to use their unique abilities in ways they had never imagined. Yuna stood before a new class of recruits. 3 more humans from Earth were among them. The warning scanner still flashed red when they entered. Earthborn, do not engage. But now everyone knew what it really meant. Not a warning, a promise. Welcome to the Academy, Yuna told the assembled cadets. You are about to learn what it means to be human. Not by biology, but by choice. The choice to never give up. The choice to protect your people at any cost. The choice to look at extinction and say not today. She smiled. That predator smile that her students had learned to recognize and respect. Let us begin. On Earth. A message arrived at command from Admiral Kiyun. Thank you for sending us Cadet Yuna. She has changed everything. We finally understand why the scanner says do not engage. Not because you are too dangerous to fight, but because you are too valuable to fight against. The coalition stands stronger with humanity as our allies. The officer reading it smiled. Behind her, through the window, Earth hung in space. That beautiful blue marble that birthed the only species, stubborn enough to punch back at the universe and win, not through strength, not through speed, not through technology, through the simple, terrible, wonderful refusal to give up, through the choice to survive, through being human.